So I'm Kevin Elmy. I operate Cover Crops Canada, based in Sylvan Lake, Alberta. I have been farming in eastern Saskatchewan for 22 years in the Yorkton, Saskatchewan area, and did a lot of learning on regenerative agriculture and transforming conventionally grown land into something that is more regenerative in nature.
Jeremy Saeman from Wing, North Dakota. Farm and ranch with my brother-in-law, Jason Bosch. My talk today is going to be on kind of an overview of the last 10 years on our farm, how we've gone from conventionally farming to more of a regenerative and seeing more of the biological activity across the farm. So
I'm Cody Kologi. I ranch in Moffat, North Dakota, which is in the southern part of Burleigh County. We run a stocker yearling business, and we've been that way for the past 4 years or so. Today I'm going to be covering some integrating cover crops or replacing cash crops with cover crops and harvesting them with livestock. We've been using cover crops for the past 5-6 years probably. Our first stab at cover crops was for winter forage, and now that as our business has kind of transitioned, our use for the cover crops has also transitioned, so we now utilize these cover crops during the growing season, and we just found that grazing these cover crops during the growing season puts on tremendous gain on cattle, and that's dollars in our pocket.
I'm Kris Staiger from Hebron, North Dakota. We run a cow-calf operation with a heifer development program southeast of Hebron. I do this with my wife and 5 children. Today I have the opportunity to talk about grazing cover crops integrated with our rotational grazing system on our beef cattle.
Thank you very much for inviting me here today. Great to be back in Bismarck, when you can spend time with the Pope here of soil health. It's always a real good day because, I hang around Jay. There's these tidbits that he just drops. You just keep learning off of them. So regenerative ag, we're not going to get too deep into it because, once again, having Rick here, what a inspirational guy to learn off of. And the real fun thing of it is when we get further down the road of soil health, you look at the numbers and you just, those numbers are right. Those make sense. So if we're just starting on the journey, it's a fun one to be on. And one of the things that I was able to do is in 2023, I spent most of the year in Australia, Western Australia, a little bit in the east. And so we're going to start seeing that these principles that we have, they're universal. It isn't the fact that, that just works in Bismarck and as soon as we go east or west or north. These are universal principles. The biggest thing is when we are looking at these principles, when we're applying them, now we're going to have to adjust our local agronomy. So that when, last week I was in Wichita, this week I'm here, next week, if you're looking for me, I'm going to be north of Edmonton, Alberta, in Peace River. Guess what? Same principles. So as we go through and we're looking and we can't do that here, well, we can't do it maybe the way Rick does it. How can we adapt it? And so these are the things, and this is the reason why having these panels are so important, that we're going to have different views. And once again, there's lots of experience of doing things differently, having different roads of getting there. So here's a picture of some rotational grazing in Western Australia. What principles are there? Same principles as here. So when we're looking at these soil health principles, adapting this is really, really important. We need to know what options we have, what restrictions we have in our, whether it's environment, economics, and one of the things I talk about in my presentations is, when we're making decisions, we always have 3 options: good, fast, and cheap, and we get to pick 2 of them. So unless you're Jay Fury and you can find the good, fast, and cheap, most of us are going to struggle, and we're going to be on our road, and we're going to figure out a way. But once again, these meetings, great place to do some learning, and we'll talk about that. And these mentors, it's really important when we start talking about, where do we learn from? Within this regenerative world, I spent 5 days with Christine Jones. She was dropping these little tidbits like Jay, and just kind of, why don't we know about this? Last year at No Till in the Plain, spent a day with James White. What a great day that was. And once again, revamped my whole thinking about plant nutrition and soil nutrients. This year was with Jeff Lowenfeld. Great learning again. Chris Nichols is now in Calgary. Jill Clapperton, I spent a day with her when at No Till, like all these big names, and you can sit down, talk to them. They're great individual people, and they love talking to producers. So it's really good to have these mentors, and it doesn't have to be a scientist. It can be your neighbor, a friend, someone that you know in the room, that now we can have that mentorship to help guide and bounce ideas off of. WhatsApp is a great resource to set up groups and throw ideas out there. So these meetings, conferences, the presenters, researchers, they're all approachable. So I'm going to have my information, maybe not after this presentation, but the closing remarks. If you have questions, you have ideas, throw them at me. I'm full of ideas, and some of them are good. Some of them are going to be really wacky, but now we're going to be able to take that information, that stupid idea that I threw on the wall, you're going to give it a little tweak, and now you're going to make it work locally for your operation. So, these are these things we could be doing. YouTube has some great resources, the University of YouTube. There's a lot of stuff out there. In Western Canada, the challenge is, okay, so, we're dealing with, 110, 120 frost-free days. Can we do what Rick's doing there? How do we modify it? How do we change it? So, there are resources, ideas. The books, the WhatsApp, all this stuff is good. And just looking at the picture. So this is a 12-year-old girl from New South Wales, Australia, really big into to regen ag. Her hero is Nicole Masters, which, a good hero to have. They did a workshop in Australia, and this 12-year-old goes up to Nicole, can I get a picture with you, and how do I get your job? So, that's where she was at. So she talked her dad into doing a trial of phosphate fertilizer versus a compost and compost extract on the seed, along with some vermicast and some other goodies. But you can see on the left, that oat plant isn't happy with all the phosphate, and it was under a drought. The one on the right, biological system, it's functioning. And so, I spent 5 days 3 days in Australia with Diane and Haggerty, and then I got them out in Western Canada for 2 weeks and touring around, and they're saying, the principles of how they're doing it, there's no difference in what they're doing we can do here. So when I'm talking with producers and they're getting into regen ag and cover cropping, first step that I talk about, and some people use this in the principles, is context. I talk about goals. First step, that when we get into this, what is your goal? What do you want to see? And I learned this the hard way, because as the first time when I got into retailing seed, it was with Steve Groff with the tillage radish. So I was a distributor in Western Canada, and people would get seed from us, and some of them would come back to me and they say, well, the radishes didn't work. I said, okay, well, why didn't they work? Well, they didn't fix nitrogen for me. Well, they're a legume, they don't fix nitrogen. So I need to go in there and start asking those questions of, what are your goals? And the goals are, and once again, if you go, I developed a website, it's covercrops.ca, and in there's a cover crop assessment sheet. And so if you're scared, you're intimidated by setting goals, this is setting goals. What are your environmental resources? What are your constraints? What are your growing conditions? What's your rotation? What weeds do you see? And all this list, and what do you want to change? This is all about change. So if it is, I want to reduce my nitrogen, I have wild oats, I have water infiltration issue, I have erosion, I have, what other problems in agriculture do we have? We can go in there and we can fix it. And, you know, a very wise man said once that plants fix dirt. And absolutely. So now what plants fix what problems? That's the challenge. When we go through and we see these problems, we need to identify, is that the cause or is that the actual symptom? Is it a causal agent or is this just fixing a symptom? So the joke I use is, okay, so, you know, went to the doctor and I said, doctor, I got a problem. I touch my head, it hurts. I touch my ribs, it hurts. I touch my knee, it hurts. Doctor said, well, you have a broken finger. So whereas, you know, the medical system, hopefully no one's in the medical system here, but, you know, we're all on, oh, okay, we'll get you tested, we'll put you on these drugs. And what companies make these medical drugs that we consume? The same ones that are making our herbicides, our fungicides. So guess what? It's the same system and it's into killing. So once again, another wise man said, you know, he gets up in the morning and, you know, instead of going out and wanting to kill something, it's what new life am I going to see? I think there's a guy just down from the Menoken farms that said that. And that's exactly it. As we get into it, the people that I've been working with, one of the things that they've noticed is now their kids are wanting to go out to the field because now there's some bugs out there. There's these pretty flowers. There's things I can go eat right in the field. So it's really neat that when we go through that causal versus the symptom, which one are we attacking? And then how do we measure these baselines? Just like Rick said, we need to have that baseline when we're starting to say, okay, here we are, 3 years later, do we see change? What I would do to go back to 1999 and get a sample of the dirt that I bought. Dirt, because it wasn't soil. Whereas the guy that ended up buying our land, so we sold in 2022, the guy that bought our land told me that, you know, out of all of the acres that he has of, you know, 80,000 acres, he gets the best yields off of my land. Imagine that. So when we're getting this information, these baselines, get too much information. Because 5 years from now, what are we wanting to remeasure and take into account? So get too much information. That's the other thing we want to do. So one of the things, the other thing, when we start talking about converting into regen ag, one of the things that I really encourage, or, you know, I encourage, I don't want to go out and walk your field because you know your fields. So I do a lot of work through the phone, through video. But what you'll find is your power observation gets better. So as our power of observation gets better, you start noticing more. So you're going to start seeing the changes in your soil aggregation, the number of insects you have out there, what kind of wildlife are now moving in. Never mind the other issues of, you know, whether it's eroding or blowing where the neighbors are. And there is no cookie cutters out there. So this is a video from Western Australia, and they talked about this non-wetting sand. So this is 1% or less organic matter. It is 95+% sand, and I poured water on top of it, so you pick it up and it runs through your finger, but when you put water on it, it doesn't go in. And once again, that's just a Western Australia thing that, you know, kind of blew my mind. But, you know, these are the things, some of these constraints that we have to work with. So when we go through and we're looking at these solutions that we're going to be doing, you know, we're going to be basing our path that we choose on what our goals are. Our environmental inventories, our budget. What kind of tools do we have? Like, do we have that roller crimper? Do we have a zero-till drill? And you know, how fast do we want to grow into that? And we're never alone. If you're feeling that you're stuck in the corner and you have this weed or this, you know, I don't seem to moving forward, talk to your mentors, talk to your groups, talk to your people, because once again, here's going to be people, 3 individuals right here that, you know, was it an easy transition? There's learning steps. And each one of us, because we have different backgrounds and different constraints and different goals, we're going to have different bottlenecks. So we just have to go out there and, you know, just keep trying, keep working with the people moving forward. And so these principles, this is Dr. Jones, Christine Jones, was at a couple of her presentations, and she has 4 principles. The soil as a living system, absolutely. The health of all living systems is influenced by their microbiome, absolutely. The soil microbiome is determined by plant diversity, absolutely. And what's good for the soil is good for animal production. Guess what? Rick, it's the same principles as him, just different words. So it's just going out there and just doing that right thing. And one of the things we have to watch, and Rick had the challenge, I had the challenge of this quick fix. What is the quick fix? How do we get around this? How do we not short circuit the system? So, the research is out there, like a lot of the stuff that Christine Jones talks about, that, rhizophagy with Dr. White, it's been out there since the 50s. And we're just finding out about it now, at least I'm finding out about it now. But now it's the application. Now we're getting the science so we can actually prove it. Do that mineralogical test. That's another real good baseline. So it's going to tell you the complete amount of these nutrients in your soil instead of just doing a soil extraction. So that this way at Dakota Lakes, Dr. Beck was talking in the top 4 feed, he has 6,000 pounds of phosphate. How do we make it available? How do we move it around? So, and the other thing is, as once again Rick said, there's a lot of these Rick said, so I'm going to be saying today, is we need to earn the right to reduce our inputs. You do not wake up and you come to this meeting, yep, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to 0 inputs or reduce by 70%, and it's going to be all roses. It's all going to be easy. If it was easy, we wouldn't have this panel here to help guide us along. So, these are the things we have to earn the right, and how do we earn the right? Well, we need to build soil health. And when we're dealing with these looking for the quick fix because we're hung up somewhere, that means we have a bottleneck in the system. Now, is it biological, is it physical, or is it chemical? We have to go through and we need to do that digging to find out, we have a hard pan at 4 inches. We don't have that plant diversity, we don't have that biological diversity. We have to add more. So how do we get through that? And then, the other thing is this drought thing. Like we talking to you about, 8/10 of rain since last June. Okay, that's nasty. But when we do get normal rain and we still have drought, why? Because we don't have the infiltration. I think Nicole Masters is the one that says, someone asked her how much rain did you get, and she says, I got all of it. Why? Because we have this infiltration of, 20 inches in an hour. That's crazy. So we need to develop that system. And when we get that system going, it is interesting as we go through, because it is a journey. As we went along, like I was at it for 22 years, and was I happy with my soil? Jay, are you happy with your soil at the farm? There's always things to improve. Okay, so, our soil compaction went from here down to here. Okay, can we get to here? You look at the cover of my book. By definition, my soil should be 4 inches of A horizon. We were down to 24 inches. We grew our top soil, our A horizon, by 20 inches in 20 years. We can do that because we developed that system. We've been messing up our soils for somewhere between 50 and 125 years. We cannot fix it in one. It's going to take some time. We need to share. We need to share our information. We need to talk. We need to have meetings like this. We need to have these conversations with people to spread word, to get ideas, to get that feedback. And, this whole thing of the same thinking is going to get the same results. Absolutely. Different thinking is going to get us different results. And we get those different results, now we're going to start being able to move forward. So now we're going to get to the good stuff. We're going to start hearing these stories, the pathways that that our producers have. So the first one is going to be Cody, that is going to talk about his journey. Cody.
Can everybody hear me? Good? I don't know. You want me to stand up? Okay. I'll just sit then. I'll be more comfortable. Okay. First off, thank you everybody for coming today. We sure appreciate you, everybody at the Burley County Soil Conservation District has worked really hard, and we appreciate all of them for putting this together, and thank you guys for coming. My name is Cody Kologi. I, along with my wife, Medora, we own and operate Prairie Hills Ranch in Moffett, North Dakota, which is south central North Dakota, or on the way southern end of Burley County. This is just one of my favorite pictures on the place. Because it's raining and there's, yeah, that's a nice thing. There's my family. There's my wife, Medora, and then we ranch with our 4 daughters. They're Harper, Kennedy, Luella, and Gentry. Our mission statement is healthy land, happy families, and profitable businesses. One thing that we do on our ranch is, well, I'll just say this, we are a grass-based operation, meaning we have quite a bit more native range, about 80% more actually than we do cropland. I do not like to farm. I'm not good at it. We are a very sandy soil, so we let the cattle harvest it for us. We just kind of manage them. I like to refer to these cattle as some of our employees. They work for us. But that picture is taken in 2024, and that's a group of about 1,025 head of steers, and there's a few hundred heifers in there as well, spayed heifers. But we intensively manage them, and we're moving from paddock to paddock, if I remember correctly. That's in June sometime, and the green is making me wish we had spring. But we move this big group of cattle about every 24 to 48 hours. They get everybody thinks of moving cattle like, oh, we got to call the cousins and uncles and the neighbors and get every four-wheeler, and a lot of people that don't know how to actually handle cattle. But these cattle get so used to being moved all the time that you go out there with a four-wheeler or a horse and just call them, and this is them literally following us to the next paddock, because they are equally as excited to move as we are to move them. Another thing I want to point out too is, can everybody see this laser? Can you guys see that laser on the screen? This is a fence that the paddock we're moving them to. You can see visually what's been grazed and what hasn't. But another thing I want to point out too is, too often when we're managing our rangeland and our grasses, we don't want to waste anything. Now, I'll tell you guys, this is not waste. We're leaving this paddock, and this grass is, I mean, you can still tell, is probably 6 to 8 inches tall, and like I said, this is in June. That's all solar panel. That will help this rangeland come back quicker, recover quicker, so we can come back again and graze that. We try to keep everything we try to keep everything in the growth stage. We don't want our grass to go to seed because, as many of you guys know, if you've put up hay or something, if oats hay, for example, if it heads out, it starts putting all its nutrition into the seed. We want to keep as much nutrition in that green photosynthetic part of the grass as possible, because that translates to higher animal performance, and that is number one for us, is animal performance. Here's some other cool pictures. We had all the nice smoke from the Canadians a few years ago. Yeah, and this one, they're just taking a swim. Probably not as good for hoof rot, but we let them. Another thing, like I said, we have about 800 acres of cropland, and like I said before, we do not like to farm. We're not good at it. Very blow sand type soil, poor organic matter. So we've tried farming in the past, and like I said, we got to kind of know and understand ourselves, and we're just going to let the cattle harvest it for us. So we just plant season-long cover crops to almost 100% of our cropland fields every year, and these our primary cover crop is a warm season cover crop planted in end of May, June. Like I said, not a farmer, so I don't get too excited to get the drill out there and be the first one in the county to plant, because I got quite a few other things to worry about. So we don't get in a hurry to plant. Like I said, planted end of May. This is probably in July, August, early August timeframe. Not all the field is like this. This was like the coolest spot, so I took this picture. Most of it is probably 3 to 4 feet tall when we turn out on it, and as you can tell with this picture with these yearlings, you can hardly see them, or you can see their backs. And like I said, in our rangeland grazing type mentality, we're very intense and moving frequently. Like our average paddock size on rangeland is 80 acres. Where this field in particular is about 300 acres. I do not split that field. I just turn out 1,000 yearlings on that 300 acre piece. And it goes back to my goal is performance on these yearlings. I want them to be as selective as possible on that cover crop. And then we will take it to probably they'll literally strip the leaves off the sorghum, and then they'll eat the heads. Some years they'll love the sunflowers and they just shine. And then some years they don't touch them. But we'll take half, and then we'll move to the next cover crop field, and then the next cover crop field, and then the next cover crop field. And by that time, we've had probably given our rangeland about a month of rest, so we can either go back to the rangeland, or I'm just continually impressed with these warm season cover crops because they don't take much rain to regrow. We can sometimes go to our field number 5, and when we're done grazing that cover crop, go back to that first cover crop we grazed. It came back that quickly. This is my second daughter, Kennedy, with a gigantic purple turnip. Thought that was pretty cool. Another thing we implement is cereal rye. Not because I like planting more, but because it literally gets these cattle out grazing 2 to 3 weeks earlier every spring. And economics is very important to me, and I don't like feeding hay either. So if we can, each day these cattle are working or feeding themselves is money in my pocket. And when you go from feeding dry hay to turning out on some of this lush green grass, we're probably pushing 3 and 3.5 pounds a day compensatory gain on some of these yearlings. So you start figuring out your value of gain per day. If it's over $2, $6 per head per day, that's money. We like to split our cereal rye fields with polywire because cereal rye, if you're not familiar with it, grows so quickly. If you don't turn out every mouth out there that you own possible, it'll get ahead of you. So we split it so that we utilize almost 100% of it, and you can be pretty tough on cereal rye, and we'll just move on, and then we'll kind of do the same thing. We might turn out on grass and then come back to this in 2 or 3 weeks, and it might look like that again. Another thing we've utilized is swath grazing, and we use that on cover crops if we ship cattle early or we have cover crop fields that we have not harvested. We'll just take a pole type swather. We just bought a $3,000 international 30-foot, and we will literally swath these cover crops, sorghum, warm season cover crop mixes. And this was taken in the spring of 2023 when we had, I think that was the awful winter. Am I correct, guys? 2023? 22, 23? Okay. Anyway, this got buried in however many inches of snow we had. But again, this is probably in April. And as soon as these swaths the snow started to melt and expose these swaths, these cattle were out grazing. And I mean, you could have rolled out some hay there or good alfalfa, and they would definitely choose to eat this old brown sorghum or cover crop and over being fed. It just goes to show that cattle just love to graze. They just want to graze. So we just let them do what God designed them to do, and it helps us financially. They don't do as well they don't perform as well, but we do supplement quite a bit of protein and energy when we're doing this, we're still dollars ahead doing that than full feed. At Prairie Hills Ranch, we also have a direct marketing division. We kind of started that in 2019 to add some additional income, and it kind of really escalated. We now finish about 25 this year, but our normal year is about 40 beef a year, and it works really well for us. It's if we have some something with like a pink eye, it gets sorted off. We'll finish that, and it works out perfect. Either instead of get beat up in the commodity type system, we sell these finished beef on our ranch at a premium, and it's some of the best stuff ever. I love this picture. My wife doctored that up, and it's making me hungry. This is such a cool picture too. It's nothing special. We just kind of supplement a little bit of energy, as in corn and peas, but they freely go back out and graze grass. That's the majority of their diet is just native range. And then as you can tell, they get pretty wild. We threw a bull rope on one, and good old number 26, and that's my oldest daughter, riding 26 as it's being fed. It's gotten to the point, this direct marketing thing for us is it's amazing cash flow for us, which is very important. Profit is probably the lifeblood of any business. And 40 beef a year has a pretty substantial gross margin to it. So we're very blessed, and it's gotten to be to the point where it's easy. And I say that because we've built up this customer clientele enough where when they need another quarter, they call, so we don't have to actively go and hunt for new customers. And that's huge. That was the toughest part of getting this started, but now we're finally reaping the benefits of that. All right, and now I'm going to pass it over to Jeremy.
Well, that's pretty awesome. My name is Jeremy Saeman, farm and ranch, northern Burleigh County up at Wing, North Dakota. I farm with my brother-in-law, Jason Bosch. In the picture up there, you'll see my nephew in the international tractor about 10 years ago. Now he drives bigger ones. That's Case, and the middle one's Peyton, and the other one is Nora. And then rest of my family's in the middle, and my brother-in-law's family's on the right side there. Originally, when I came back to the farm 2006, my folks were farming 850 acres. They had 120, 140 head of cows. We've since then taken it to 3,000 acres of cropland, 250 acres of hay ground, 250 acres of native hay, 2,000 acres of pasture. This year we have 340 cow-calf pairs, and we have 84 heifers in the pen. So, what button do I hit? There we go. My mother is a master gardener, as you can see there. That's her menagerie. She can't believe I put that in there. But she took the NDSU course years ago for the master gardener course. That's where I get my love for plants, I suppose. Our farm consists of gravel, as you see there, and just up the hill in between those gravel piles is where that big rock came from. So we go from gravel to big boulders. So a few years ago, we picked up some CRP land that was being pastured, and we converted it back to cropland. And I don't like tilling. We did one field. It takes forever to 6 passes, and I'm like, this is dumb. Let's do it somewhere else. So that's what we did there. In the other picture, it shows I've since just no-tilled into prairie like that, sprayed it out, and a year later I'll come back with that joker. It's 1 pass instead of 6 of them. It's simple. You might take a little hit on the yield the first year, but it's way simpler. Here you can see this last year. My nephew was seeding on the left side. That's corn into a hay ground that the gophers kind of overtook. We used to farm it 15 years ago. We put it back to grass and alfalfa. Been haying it for that long. This last spring, we ran 200 head of cows in 60 acres, and then we seeded corn into it.
And even though you had one row plugged on the corn planter, it still yielded 86 bushel. So on the right side, that's where we no-tilled into the pasture, kind of the same type of ground. I didn't like the grass in that ground. That's where we had our cover crop tour last year. So I used my cover crop for hay. So you can see that's what it looks like early spring, mid-spring, and that right side is about July. We were really dry that year, but it makes really good hay. Here again, we did a cover crop. This was seeded late because it was wet, and normally I would have hayed that off, but it got late on us into September, and I said, well, what can we do? So I asked Jay Fuhrer, he says, well, you got two options. You can graze it off, but I need the hay in the middle of winter. That's my goal. And I chose this one. We chopped it off. On the right side, that's what was left after we chopped it. We ran 250 head of cows in that quarter of ground for 2.5 weeks, I believe. So, and we like to grow in big ground there. We do a lot of bale grazing. That just happened to be one that was there around the bales. So if you put the right nutrients there and the right conditions, you can really get a big crop, right? Here I tried 60-inch corn. I realized I did something totally wrong, but it wasn't all wrong because we ran cows out there in January and cut down my feed costs quite a bit. So I did try to strip graze that. It worked for the first 3 days, and then I couldn't keep the cows in. I've done some poly cropping over the years. Back in 2020, we did some piola. You can see we're trying to separate that there. On the right side, the year after, we tried some cover crop where we just kind of, the last 20 acres, we tried some peas and oats, and I thought that looked good enough. Let's try to combine that. As you can see, the oats is really green. Really made good feed though, so. Here on the left side, you can see if you zoom in, there's a worm right on that root. That's that same field that we had that land scraper on 6 years later. On the right side, my nephew seeded that crop. That is on the right side, that's a crop that we raise on our regenerative farming. And the other one is 5 miles away on another farm where he just kind of rotates. He doesn't do it quite the same way. Seeded a day apart. Same seed, same seeder, nothing different other than management practices. So this is after, well, I take that back. On the right side of that was after the soil crop tour last summer. We had sunflowers in the field, just showing. That was the second year of going straight into a hay ground without tilling. We did run a kind of a drag over the top just to try to take the lumps out a little bit because it's rough at 10 miles an hour in the sprayer. So on the right side, if you look in, I haven't used insecticides or fungicides for probably 7 to 10 years. And Jay Fuhrer was out taking a picture for a story. And it's hard to see, but on the pea plant there, you will see some ladybugs. How many of you have ladybugs that you notice out in the field? Yeah, there's a few of us. A lot of you aren't looking for that, or you've killed them off. A ladybug is a predator. It will take care of your aphids. It will take care of all the other little things. This is our silage ground. Last year was a phenomenal year for silage. It's the first time I've ever had double cobs on a, it was stuff that Rick would probably have down in his area. I've never seen corn like that in my life. That was with 2 gallons of molasses in furrow with some humic acid, and I barely put any synthetic nitrogen over the top. Like Cody, I do a little livestock integration. I like to use rye in the spring just because the way I calf or the way I rotate, there's not green grass when I want it, and it works out great. Here you can see that I ran a line. I moved the heifers over on that piece of ground quite a few years ago. And you could see that the cows just kind of move themselves after a bit. The big thing about rye like that year we ran in between a pasture and that 40 acres with 100 heifers. We did that 5 times in June. So this is our winter feeding and watering. One of the big things that Jason and I have done in the last 15 years, or off and on, is we've really put a lot of pipelines in watering holes. We've taken our 7 home pastures and we've paddocked them down. We went from 7 to 30 paddocks. We move them probably once a week. And you can see that cows are out grazing, bale grazing. We'll drop a few bales out there for the cows. I'll take some silage out. The bales, if they don't eat it enough, I'll drop a little silage on. They'll clean it up pretty good. I don't run anything over in the spring. I'll take my corn planter out there and we'll slice right through that stuff without any row openers. I don't use row openers, and I don't think, maybe we have to pick up 1 or 2 spots with, there's too much hay there, but as Gabe Brown would tell you, that's just good food for next year, so. I also have to manage more than 1 herd. If you don't know what that is, we have a tendency to get 500 deer in the middle of winter. It's quite an unusual problem, but we've since had that fixed a little bit. But it's just crazy to see that many wildlife on one spot, right? This is a farm on the left side that is actually Daryl's mother's land. With rotational grazing, I had a landlord that wouldn't let me rotate graze, but my cows in the middle of summer would break over the fence because I had them on both sides. I had 60 on one side and 25 on the other side, and in the middle of summer, they'd get together either way. And finally, I convinced him after 10 years, I'm like, why don't you just let me move them a little bit, So that's what I saw after the 3rd year rotational grazing on that piece of land. You can see all the wildflowers. And on the right side, when I'm out in the pasture moving cattle, that's what I like to stop and take a picture of, because my mother and my wife and my sisters, they appreciate flower pictures. So here we are moving cattle. Our farm is full of roads, gravel roads, so it makes a good crop tour, as Jay Fuhrer would say. So there's a road past just about every field, so if I'm doing something wrong, you're going to see it. So what you do see in that picture, though, is since about 4 years ago, I guess, we started gaining a lot more wild production in our fields, or pastures, and I'm gaining a lot of sweet clover, whether I want it or not. It's there, so. And here's a video. Hopefully this will play. Do I just press the button again? This is my daughter, Peyton. She's moving heifers in a pasture. Well, we weren't like moving them, but I think they got out that day and we put them back in. She's moving them without any buckets or anything. They're just following her around like little puppy dogs. So, the other thing on our farm is I've been using humic acid and biologicals for over 10 years. The big thing I'm probably going to change in the next couple of years is I haven't used a lot of compost extract or anything on the seed, and I'm going to try and go that way. I have put a little bit of worm castings. I bought a tote of worm castings from some company, and I was sprinkling that in the seed this last 2 years. So, but there we go. On to the next.
Well, good morning. My name is Kris Staiger. Very excited to be here. Thank you for having me be a part of this event today. I am a professional. I know a little about a lot, and I learned more from these events listening to other people in the room than I'll be able to share with you today. But first of all, I got a little joke for you guys. I am a dad. You can see my kids up there. So they asked if I'd do a dad joke this morning. Does anybody know what happens if you end up in a poison ivy patch mixed with a 4-leaf clover? It's a rash of good luck. So that's where we're going to start today. Like I said, my name is Kris Staiger. My wife and kids, we ranch out in Hebron, North Dakota. My wife, Cassandra, and our 5 kids, Kiana, Kinsley, Kennedy, Cassidy, and Callahan. And this is a picture here of our ranch right at the 4th of July. And that's kind of the last time it's rained at our place since then. So I graduated from NDSU in 05. My wife graduated in 08. Both have animal range science with crop and weed minors. We didn't have a ranch to come back to. A lot of what we've done in our life and our career with our family has been, how do I say it, learn the hard way, trying to keep up and doing things that neighbors are doing, but not realizing that one operation is not same to the next operation. So that was something that we've kind of learned the hard way on a lot of that. But since then, we have taken the opportunity of working with the NRCS program, developing cross-share, cross-fence programs, cover crops. So we've taken advantage of that. So we're kind of on the right path now, but every once in a while, it's still learn the hard way and figure it out and try and adapt to it. So one thing that I always like to look at things to put things in a perspective. Don't believe everything that you see. What's going to work at my place is not going to work at your place. You always need a plan B for everything that you're doing. So we run a cow-calf operation with yearling heifer enterprise along with it. So we're utilizing rotational grazing, and we're putting up all of our hay, a lot of it small grains. One thing that we've started is we're always planting a cover crop in with our small grains. This is a picture here of just planting turnips and radishes in with an oats crop. The reason why we're doing that is we like to come back and graze our hay ground after we've hayed it and moved the hay off. Usually those radishes and turnips are coming back pretty fast, and by fall they're popping the turnips out of the ground. Really works well. This is my little one. We must have the same interest in looking at purple top turnips here. So we established an alfalfa crop last year, and we seeded our oats in as a cover crop. And I didn't know that we still had the turnip seed in this cover crop. So we were haying this alfalfa, and we had the size of bowling balls rolling down the windrows as we were raking, and that didn't turn out very well when you're baling and those radishes and turnips are getting thrown at your tractor. However, though, it was very interesting. On that seeding year, we did have some rain after we harvested, and where those radishes and turnips popped out of the ground, that made a cup in the ground, and that held a phenomenal amount of moisture in the ground, and those cups were still full of water 3 days after the rain. And a lot of that's because we have very hard soil out in western North Dakota by Hebron, a lot of clay. So we have a lot of hard pans, and that's why we're trying to utilize this taproot to try and break that up a little bit. The flowers, that's interesting too. You know, you guys had those in. I didn't know we had flowers in our pasture until my girls came home one day. And my wife says, "You're looking, but you're not seeing." And that's a big thing. How many times as producers do we go out to our pasture and we're checking cows, we're checking fences, we're checking the watering system, but how much are we actually looking at our grass and listening to what our grass is telling us? That's a big thing now, and I've seen this even this fall. I work ag retail, so I deal with a lot of customers out in the Hebron area. What happened to our grass this fall? We lost all the nutritional value. It dried up, and a lot of producers are saying, well, my calves in the last 30 days gained 0.5 pounds a day. So doing the math, they gained 15 pounds of weight in the last 30 days. So what was the side effect? Drew down the cow's body condition scores, took off a lot of the armor that was in those last cells and everything. So what was your actual, did you make any money even at the high prices, or are we sticking that back into supplement for our cows to try and get them in a condition for breeding? So that's one of the things, if you need to be understanding what's happening to the grass and relate that to the nutritional requirements of the cow. Are we making money? Are our cows gaining weight? Are the calves gaining weight? If not, what do we have to do? I think this is my last slide, but we're going to visit a little bit. So we do rotational graze. I work a lot with Chance at NRCS. The first time he came out, it was very eye-opening for me. Like I said, I always learn something new from everybody. Even just visiting with Kevin here 5 minutes before, I have about 10 things that I need to research when I get home. So I had the opportunity to meet an individual last year, or 2 weeks ago down in Arizona at a conference. And we're talking about the cow-calf operation, integrating cover crops into it and everything. And, you know, I basically said, we're the traditional guys that we start grazing our grass in June, and we take the cows off the end of October, and we're selling calves right off the cow. You know, I was the person that did not have calves that gained a lot of weight the last 30 days. 2 years ago, it actually was no weight gain. And so we tried fixing it this year with creep feed. There's pros and cons to that, and I'm not going to get into the creep feed, but what I was really interested in, what this individual from the middle of Montana was telling me, they were in the same situation that we were, grazing grass in the fall that necessarily wasn't the highest quality and just not getting the weight gain. They have a 2,000 acre crop ground on their ranch, so they've split it. Now they're grazing half of their farm ground cover crops, and they're haying the other half for winter feed. And that way, they are putting the highest nutritional crop to their cow-calf pairs all summer long instead of going through the droughts or a lower quality grass. And when I say that, all cells on your operation, all operations are different. Different cells will have different nutritional qualities. So if you can identify that, we can maximize our weight of gain. But anyways, what they did is calving April 15th, and they're selling calves off the cow the middle of October, and they averaged 700 pounds this year. And I didn't believe that, but the more that I was talking to him, it makes sense because they are using that highly nutritious cover crop all year, grazing that, and then when they take their calves off after weaning, they put them onto what was traditionally their summer pasture. It's worked very good for them. They've eliminated their commercial fertilizer that they've been putting on the ground and greatly reduced their herbicides that they were using on their ranch. So those are some of the things that we're gonna be looking at in the future. How many producers here are younger cow-calf guys that are going to be implementing a custom grazing system using cover crops? Or is there anybody here at that point? So one of the biggest things for us was is have a goal, and you don't need to design a huge system at first, but have a goal and expect a result. And with that goal is to make sure that you have the plan B, have the infrastructure in place. If it's the fence What type of fence is going to be best for your operation? The water supply, which is huge. I've been testing quite a bit of water out in the Hebron area, and we're finding that springs that were used for years watering their livestock are now high in total dissolved solids. Some sulfate issues. So that's all having a negative effect on your cattle, tying up trace minerals and everything like that. So good, strong quality water, good fences, and so that's some of the advice that I can say. But always think outside the box. I'm learning something new every single day. I failed a lot. It's not necessarily all the time a win-win situation because life will throw curveballs. But I think that being here and taking the resources from the speakers here today is going to really improve your operation and set you up for success.
Well, thank you. That was, once again, there's the operation. These are the setups. You know, I was in my mind taking some notes of, okay, so what are the options? What other things can they be doing? And the whole idea of the relay cover cropping is what I call it, having something growing underneath your cash crop, harvest your cash crop, and then doing the fall grazing on it. When we have these vegetative plants growing in the fall, that is going to be the highest Brix levels, and that's one of the things, if anybody's not familiar with Brix and refractometers, great tool when you start talking feed, but this is when the animals gain the most. You know, with Rick having that green plant growing in the fall, having those root exudates, that's going to feed the bacteria, which is going to help balance out his fungal to bacteria ratio. All of these different things, all these implications. And so now this is going to be the real fun part. This is going to be part of your learning and interaction. We're going to start asking questions, but because I'm the moderator, I get the first chance at it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask the same question to the three of you. There's going to be three questions. First question of why did you start into this different management? What are your goals is the second one. And number three, if you're going to be starting on day one again, what would you do different?
Okay, I'll start the show. Why? What made us move to a regenerative type thinking or adapting that management technique was finances. We started ranching, me and my wife, in 2016. We were taking over her parents' ranch. I didn't say that. And we ranched like they did, and my dad did, and her uncles did, and it didn't work out for us. We bought cows, and I don't know, you guys know the cattle cycle, I'm sure you've heard of it. We bought cows at the beginning of the downslope of the cattle cycle and tried paying for them with $900 calves. It didn't work out for us. So I'm either too dumb to quit or just too German, and I won't quit, too stubborn. But I'm like, there's people making it in this business. How are they doing this? I'm going to find a way. We're going to figure it out. And we're going to make it happen. So we started researching, and I have a wonderful neighbor, Mr. Carpenter, over here, who said, "Yeah, you should probably come check out what these guys are doing at Menoken Farm. They could maybe help you out." So we've learned that, wow, if we cross-fence our pastures, we can, instead of have a full section pasture that you just turn whatever X number of cows out, if you split that pasture into 8 different paddocks, you're literally giving 8 times the rest, and you can stock that ranch. It's like going out and buying another half a ranch. We're at like a 125% stocking rate compared to the average producer in Burleigh County. So it's like going out and buying another quarter size or 1,000 acres, and but we don't pay any more taxes on that. So that, like I said, we had the wind knocked out of us, and we were backed in a corner, and we didn't know what to do, so we started adapting these methods, and we said, wow, this is amazing. We started bale grazing and cutting costs here and there, and we started to educate ourselves. I applaud all of you guys coming here today because knowledge is power. I know you've probably all heard that 1,000 times, but I'm serious, it is. And if you can change the way you see things or change the way you think, you can change your outcome. And So come to these things, meet new people, develop a new friend group. Don't go to the coffee shop anymore and listen to that soapbox. It's tiring, and it'll make you a Debbie Downer. I mean, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most, and if you're hanging out with a bunch of victims, you probably are one too, you know. Make friends that are winners, and you'll be a winner too, just like if you're in a Bible study. If you're in a Bible study, you'll tend to lift each other up, and that's what we need. We all need somebody in our corner to help us out. So that's kind of my why. What was the next question? The goals. Oh, the goals, okay. Goals is to pay for the ranch. So we're just trying to figure out, we're basically, what I've learned is on our ranch, we are grass farmers. We sell grass is what we do. How we sell grass or how we eat that grass, I need to make sure that is the most profitable critter or species or whatever of critter to bring me the most return for that grass. So eventually, hopefully, like I said, our balance sheet will look better, and we'll own more of this place, and won't have so many payments. So that's my immediate goals is keep hammering down on debt and eventually get this thing paid for. And then the next one.
If you were going to go back in time and restart, what would you do differently?
Okay, it goes back to that friend group, and I would have educated myself sooner. We went to, like I said, this is an awesome educational opportunity that I'm thankful that you guys are all here. We've also done a ton of other schools, ranching schools, like Ranching for Profit, for example, or holistic management, or marketing schools. All those things are you might think, wow, it costs $1,000 to go to one of these schools for a few days, but that is literally, a drop in the bucket in the amount of returns that we've got from those educational experiences. Not to mention all the people, the contacts you get, and you can, if you're having a bad day or this isn't working out or whatever, you can call so-and-so and they can walk you through it, or kind of help you step back from the ledge, or you can be like, am I totally crazy because I'm seeing this, and it's really nice to have somebody in your corner versus you be on an island trying to do these regenerative practices or just do things that aren't quite considered normal. They're probably normal in the way this land was all developed. Like I said, rotational grazing is kind of weird to people, but all this land out here that you see was all developed with migrating ruminants, so we're just trying to mimic nature on our ranch and do it profitably and make ranching fun, because if I think not enough kids come back to the ranch because mom and dad screamed at them, probably mostly dad, when they're working cows, and you never take a vacation, and you work 8 days a week, and you're always complaining about how you have no money. But if you can make it fun and make it profitable, we will have people come back to the ranch and take care of the place for us when we're through with them.
Okay, I don't listen, Kevin, so you got to repeat it all again. Why? My goal?
Goals?
Yeah.
And what would you do differently if
All right.
you started today?
Yep, all right. My why is because inputs get so dang expensive, so we just started cutting back and changing the way we do stuff. And I went through a drought before Jason came onto the farm with me, and I ran out of grass one year, and that's why I went hog wild and putting paddocks in and changing water sources and stuff like that. My goals on the farm, I suppose, is to get to a point where I don't need so much chemical. We can eliminate fertilizer completely and still grow a healthy crop. That's something you can go out and, like Rick said, I do all the spraying on the farm, so I'm the one that gets the cross and skull,
on the labels all the time, and sometimes I wonder if that's healthy or not, which I know it's not, but there's got to be a way around all that, and we just have to learn a different way of doing things. So, and what would I change differently? That's a good question. I've been treating my seed with biologicals of some sort for 15 to 20 years. And everything that I learned back then told me that you just want to grow your native biology in the soil. And the thing I would change is I would start throwing some biology back on the seed before you put it in the ground. I think that's the key to fixing this thing and throwing more biology out there. Like, I've listened to Nicole Masters' book, and she talks about that all the time. So does just about anybody else. Jay Fuhrer's worm farm out at Menoken farm is unbelievable. If you guys haven't seen that, take time to do that. So, and it's not just Jay's, I guess, but he's the brainchild behind that, so I appreciate that. The other thing I would do is do more education things earlier on in my life. So I've always been a learner, a constant learner, but maybe not the right things. So I would come to more of this. I started coming to these way back early when we had it down at the Ram Coda and there was 400 people in the room. So lots of learning over the years, but trying to implement things. But that would be the big thing I would change, is putting some biology on the soil. So
I guess part of the biggest reason is the ranch that we're on now. We went on there in 2011, and kind of in the same boat. We were building our herd at the same time. We got to our maximum cow number, or highest number cow numbers, in 2015. And if anybody remembers what happens, all of the marketing strategists and everybody was saying that this market's going to be here for 4 years. Well, by November, that was gone. And we were almost over leveraged with the amount of cattle that we had compared to what calves were worth then. So it had to, something had to change. And when we rented the, or when we went onto the ranch that we're on now, our landlords moved to Arizona, and I promised them that I'd always take the best care of the land that I possibly can. So that's a really tough balance when you're in a drought in 2017 and another drought in 2021 with depressed calf markets and high dollar loans on your livestock. That was very tough. We had to change, or else we were going to not make it. So that's when we started more of the cross fencing, more of the cover crops, trying to reduce the amount of hay that we're feeding over the winter. And that honestly is what did get us through. Every year when our landlords would come back, we would take them out and show them what we're doing, what are the new projects, and they were very happy all the time. They enjoy seeing the grass. They enjoy seeing the flowers out there in the pasture now. Wildlife, more pheasants on our place and everything. So that is why we did it. Bottom line, it was to, improve the quality of our ranch, both in our livestock, what we were producing, our stress level, our load, and economics. Our goal, being that my wife and I both work full-time, I work for Weld Fencing and TK Vet. My wife works for the post office. We have 5 kids. We recently got sheep on Friday because we have working cow dogs on our farm, and 87 hens, and we sell eggs every day. That's why I was a little late this morning, because we were delivering eggs to town. But so you're probably wondering what we do in our free time. Free time is showing our kids how to love the land, how to treat the land, projects that you do with the land. And when they're not in school, when you ask our kids, what do you want to go do? Well, let's go out to the pasture, look for flowers, check cows, take mineral out, and sometimes fix fence. That's our goal, is to instill that in our kids so that there's no resentment in the future to where mom and dad were just working all the time. We do want to have our kids involved, and it doesn't matter that they're the age of 4 to 12. they're all involved in it and they're all happy. And, you know, that's the biggest thing is for us, it's a family operation. What would we do different? You know, it really doesn't, I don't know if we would really change a lot of things different because either way you're going to succeed and you're going to fail. It's how you adjust to what you're doing. When you fail, how are you going to react to it? I honestly don't know the question to that other than that you have to be optimistic for tomorrow, be open to change, be willing to learn new things. And I think at the end of the day, if you do that, you're always going to be happy with yourself and your operation.
Awesome. Good stories. I know with Jay, when I was talking to him about his worm farm, he said the really tough part of worm farming is branding them. That's, oh, naming. Oh, that's the other one. Yeah, tagging is really tough. So now we'll open the floor. Anybody have questions? There's 2 microphones are going to be floating around. Just put your hand up and we'll get you a microphone and we'll ask the question. Remember, there's no dumb questions. If you ask me a question, it might be a dumb answer, but the questions, it's all learning.
Hello, so my name is Marco. I'm a professor here at Bismarck State College. And this is a question for Jeremy. You said you're using humic acid products. Can you be more specific into like what kind of products are you using? Is it like liquid? Is it?
I've used a little bit of both. Okay. I've been using a liquid 2 quarts in furrow for lots of years. I've sprayed humic acid on the ground with Roundup, which they tell me you're not supposed to do. It works. I don't recommend that, but I don't think it does what it's supposed to be on top of the soil. We don't get enough rain to get it into the soil where it needs to be. The last 2 years, we've been using a humic powder on the seed. I had that slide in the deck, but the guys at the office took it out. They did a good job of cutting me down so I didn't talk forever. But that black powder is literally powder, and if there's any wind, my face was black, just like you're in a coal mine. So
my question is another question to the question. So there's different humic acid sources out there, and North Dakota, that we have our own Leonardite, right? But named after Professor Leonard from UND.
Yeah.
Are you using Leonardite, or are you finding sources from elsewhere?
The current product that I'm using is Leonardite from North Dakota, yes.
Okay. And you say it's a dry form?
Yes.
What about the size, aggregate size? Because that will affect many things.
I guess I don't understand what you're asking.
So the humic acid that you're using in a dry form will come in a size of like a pebble?
Yep.
So if you're using a powder, or are you using
It's a powder.
Powder, okay.
Yeah, this product that I'm looking at a product that's a granular.
Uh-huh.
That one, it isn't sourced out of North Dakota. It's a different product altogether, so.
Well, there's actually a company called Leonard LLC in Williston. They do have different sizes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they do sell liquid as well. And what's the point? I mean, is this for using it as a nutrient source or a soil conditioner, like to loosen up the soil?
Yeah, I'm using it kind of, the product that I've been using currently has some sugar in it along with kelp and the humic acid, so it's kind of a food source for the microbes. And with humic acid, it'll help chelate some of the nutrients that are in the soil and kind of bind it to that humic acid molecule. So it'll make some more of that available in the soil. That's a whole different story. I really don't want to go down that rabbit hole. You and I could probably do that at a different time, and I think we have years before, but that's okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Oh, this could be a good one.
while we're waiting for Jay to ask lots of questions to Cody, because I don't want to talk anymore.
So my question is, listening to the three presentations brings to mind stewardship. And something probably in your backgrounds, or maybe growing up, or parents, or uncle, aunt, or whoever, obviously something occurred that you have an appreciation for land stewardship. And how did that happen? We don't see it, I think, enough in today's world. A lot of land changes hands without the stewardship changing hands. And I think you had three good examples of land stewardship, but what made that happen in you?
I'll go first, I guess. I grew up in a dairy farm, so we had to learn stewardship real quick because there was chores twice a day, you know. And there was the paycheck back in the 80s and early 90s, so that's kind of where I got all that. Mom kind of grew most of the stuff out of the garden, and we drank raw milk out of the bulk tank, but people don't want to talk about that. It's what's old is new again, so yeah, that's kind of where I got all that. I guess I forgot to mention in my presentation earlier, my folks were very accepting. Broke 2 microphones today. There we go. My folks were very accepting of me changing practices on the farm. They're like, yeah, go try it out, see what works. If you fail kind of thing. So if there's an older generation out here, you know, don't be afraid to let your kids try stuff, and don't hold on to the reins so tight that they can't take over at some point. I'm very fortunate. So.
I think for us, it's basically always been on the stewardship side, just the respect for the land. We are producing either crops or livestock that we intend to sell to a customer, and they're watching us every single day. I personally believe that in the livestock market, the perception of what a family has of the livestock industry, let's say in the middle of Chicago, will decide whether or not they put that pound of ground beef in their shopping cart, or they'll put it back and they'll get a different source of protein. I believe that if we want to sustain our markets with our domestic consumers, that we need to show examples, and we need to be leaders in the egg industry to keep them confident and willing to buy our product. As we all know right now, beef is very expensive in the store, and any negative thing that's going to happen could offset that in the whole industry as far as the beef demand. So when we're showing examples of what we're doing for the land, how we're being regenerative, how that's affecting the health of our cattle, everything, that's when we win, is because we are gaining the confidence of our consumers. And that's the basic backbone, the economics of our business here, whether you're in crops or in the livestock side, is that we need to maintain that confidence. And going down to a personal level, I enjoy seeing grass in the pastures. During the droughts, it's very tough to look at pastures that have maybe a little bit more stress on them because of, you're just pushing a little bit harder. I like seeing the flowers, the wildlife that's coming in. We have more deer on our ranch than we've ever had before. It's very enjoyable, and I think we're always being watched. So even if you don't think so, or if it really doesn't matter because you own the land, people are watching you. They're watching what you're doing. How are you managing? And that will open up opportunity for you in the future, possibly to buy land or to rent land. An example of it, we rented some more pasture land last year, and we did not graze the pasture at all because it was grazed harder in the past. There was no rotation on it. And the owner of that land just came into my office last week, and he said, well, do you even want that pasture anymore? You didn't even graze it last year. He goes, I have a lot of people calling, and they're interested in that grass. And I said, yes, we are very interested, but it's going to fit into a rotational grazing system that we have developed. And, you know, we're resting that grass for the year, and next year we may put some pressure on that, and we will. But I think that's the biggest takeaway that I can give you of what I see on this issue.
I think a lot of my conservation type mentality developed from the Burley County Soil District. I mean, I grew up in a very traditional cow-calf, don't waste a blade of grass type business. I have other family that were the same mindset, probably just because that was normal. But when I lived through the, you know, like this doesn't work financially when we're trying to put a place together, it made me change my mind. Like I said, it takes sometimes bad things to change a person's actions or outlook on things. So I'm thankful for those tough times or dark days, because that changed my future. And now it's a snowball effect. And like I said, I'm starting to influence, like, maybe my dad or my grandpa on things, and they come to me, which is funny. But it's a blessing, and it's just probably biblical too. I mean, we're just try to take care of what the Lord's entrusted us with as best we can to maybe leave it better for our children than we may have received it. So.
My question is for Kris. And yeah, you're always being watched. I'm not near gravel road, but I'm being watched. Anyway, you had mentioned during your presentation, Kris, that are there any young people here planning on doing these things? I want to encourage everyone, you're never too old to start doing these things. Just be curious, listen to what these guys say, and just try it on your own. Don't need to start the whole farm on it. Just start out small and just grow from there at any age.
How has your health and well-being changed as a result of becoming regenerative? Are you happier?
I could say without a doubt I'm happier. I'm not going to say it's stress-free, because when you deal with, in agriculture, is your business, there's so many things out of your control, you know, weather, markets, things of that nature. But it kind of gives us not really a systems approach, but I have options, and that brings me a ton of comfort. And I know that if this doesn't work out, it's okay, and we can do plan B or C or D or E, you know. It's also taught me to become a manager. You know, let's put in some things into this business and make some preventable decisions rather than constantly putting out fires of everything that is going wrong. So it's a mindset, but financially we're better now than we've ever been. With our business now, we have free time. Like me and my wife are going to Jamaica in a few days. I mean, that's cool, yeah. So we get vacation, and like I said, we're not, we with our stock or yearling business, we even take a couple months off and not own cattle. Sometimes, maybe I don't recommend that all the time, but when you have free time or time to, you can plan and make decisions and strategic moves for your business, or you can do that project that you should have done 8 years ago. You know what I mean? You have time to do those things. So when you're grinding all the time and working, and you get home, you're just pooped out, and you don't have time to actually come up with how can we ranch better? How can we farm better? How can we run this business? Think strategically if you're just working in the business so hard. So I'd
yes, I'm happier. We're healthier, I think, and we hope to do this for a while yet.
Happier and healthier. I think a lot of that goes to taking a holistic management course years ago, so just changing your mindset of how to do things. Like, I used to move cows on Sunday because we had lots of help. Well, that made lots of enemies in the family, so we switched that to Friday afternoon, and you don't got to worry about the cows over the weekend. Everybody in the summertime can go do something else fun, so it's just a change in mindset, changing goals, and planning holistically, which I don't talk about enough, but I mean, I try to plan 2 weeks ahead of time at least of what we're doing, and I don't manage too far further than that because the weather changes on us a lot, so but that's kind of where that is, so.
Absolutely. I agree with both the other people up here. Our biggest thing is that we're going to use this to increase the income on our ranch so my wife can stay home and not be at work in town and be at home raising our kids and offsetting that. And I think that is something that we are really striving towards right now. And I do think that this is an answer to where we'll be there possibly in 1 or 2 years. So it has helped a lot with what we've been doing so far, just as far as time management, efficiency, when things need to happen as far as rotations and everything. But it is definitely something that we're going to keep pursuing and pursue more in depth.
Good question. Next year, you're going to have to get someone on the panel that's a little grumpier and not agreeing, because these guys are just, or does this work? Too much success. Too much success. It's too good, too much tax, horrible. Probably time for one more question before lunch. Going once? Oh, didn't get the going 3 times sold.
So what was your biggest frustration when you changed to Region Ag, and how did you overcome that?
I guess I know mine. The second you think you have it figured out, you learn 10 different things now that you didn't know before, and you have to go home and do homework. And it would be nice to say at the end of the day, we've completed the class, we know everything, but even a day like today, it's gonna make me feel like I need to do a lot more research, and there's always more things to learn, better ways to do it. I think that that's probably one of the biggest things for me.
I suppose my biggest challenge is when I started this path is I get some weed pressure that I wasn't used to. And overcoming that, I don't know. That's a challenge every year. Every weed's a little different. You got questions about that, Kevin will tell you it's not a weed, it's a plant that wanted to grow there, so, right? Anyways, the way I've overcome that, I guess, is with my haying of the cover crop, I take the cover crop off as it's heading out, so all those weeds should be about at that same point. And then that weed bank should be just less and less every year, so.
I would maybe add to what Kris said. I mean, us humans, we're linear thinkers. You know, we want everything. We think everything's just like one layer deep. And in nature, that's our business, is working with nature. Everything is so interconnected that there's no such thing as linear in nature. So you do one thing different and it affects, 85 different things. So having the mindset, okay, if I do this way, how can this have a negative effect on whatever, something that I didn't intend to do, So changing your mindset like that. And then another thing I would add again is just one of the biggest challenges to thinking differently and being the weirdo in your township is not having someone that's got your back, right? I mean, if you're the only one in Richland County that plants cover crops and grazes it instead of plants corn,
you're weird, you know. So, but if you can, you know, like us, we have economic models that show we make way more money grazing cover crops than we ever would running a cash crop. But if all the neighbors are talking about you, they might poo-poo that idea that was a good idea enough to where you never do that again. So I want to just reiterate: get somebody in your corner, or find people that you want to be like and hang out with them.
Absolutely. And that's, once again, my ADD loves this stuff because there's so many things moving and changing all the time that, it's hard to focus and say, okay, here we go. Oh, no, we have to go this way. So it's, it's a bit of a challenge, but it's so rewarding when we start seeing progress. And Dr. Christine Jones, she talks about before we do a management decision and do something management-wise, we have to think of the repercussions of how our soil biology is going to react. And it's so crucial because this is a black box that we're tinkering with. We don't understand it. If someone says they're an expert, you know, unless it's him, well, you're high on the list too, so don't worry. There's a lot of moving parts here, and we don't understand how this whole system is going to react. So when we go through, we have to think about some of these implications of how things are going to go. So it's 12 o'clock. So, you know, the two times to be scary as a speaker is right before lunch and then right after. So join me thanking the panel for sharing with us.